Hi, welcome to the Carnivore Stories podcast with me, Alyssa Grubner. The carnivore way of eating completely transformed my life, and it's stories just like the ones you'll hear on this podcast that kept me going every step of the way. I hope you're ready to hear an inspirational carnivore story. I know I am, but first, let me tell you about the Meat-tastic t-shirts I have for sale on my spring store. It's a great opportunity for you to become a walking billboard if that's what you're into. And it's a great opportunity for you to support your new favorite podcast. You can find a link to the spring store in my bio on Instagram at meat, M-E-A-T, Mrs. M-R-S, Grubs, G-R-U-B-S. I'll also put a link to the store in this video's description on YouTube. So check it out and get some carnivore swag. All right, so welcome to episode 14 of the Carnivore Stories podcast. Today, I am joined by Weston Rowe. He lives in Omaha, Nebraska. He's 40 years old, and he has been thriving on raw meat for over 4 years. Thank you so much for meeting with me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So the first question I want to ask you is, what was your lifestyle like for the 36 years before coming to the way you eat now?
It was pretty normal. Grew up in the Midwest, and pretty normal food growing up. As kids, like we had cereal and all that kind of stuff. Not a whole lot of junk food, but standard, lots of grains and things like that. And I always ate lots of meat, though. That's probably what kept me alive this whole time. But I guess you could say standard American diet growing up. Pretty normal upbringing. And as I got older, I did like a year of college, and then I just started going to work after that. And I've just been working basically ever since. But along the way in my 20s, well, it kind of started in my teens. I started experiencing, I guess, I just wasn't feeling very optimal. And it was probably due to my diet, I'm guessing. But in my 20s, late 20s, I started running into some kind of minor health issues like brain fog, fatigue. Had some bunch of weird skin problems pop up, like scalp issues and eczema and, stuff like that. Energy was real low. So I started looking into diet. I always knew that food was really impactful on how I felt. So I decided looking into how food could address my issues. And I looked into the carnivore diet. Well, the first thing I did was I quit gluten. That was really huge, quitting bread. And then I went into the carnivore diet. I did cooked carnivore for about a month. And I was eating lots of like eggs and bacon for breakfast and steaks during the day and things like that. And I felt really good on that. And then I found some videos on raw meats on YouTube, and I started looking into that. And I started eating raw meat, and I just never stopped ever since because it just made me feel really good. And I never had the energy that I've ever felt before on raw meat that I've had off of cooked food. So it was pretty life-changing for me. So I just stuck with it. And that's basically the short end of the story there.
Okay. So you did carnivore all meat for a month, and then you took it to the next level and said, I'm going to start eating this meat raw.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
I mean, I never really had any fears in my life of like bacteria or parasites or anything. That wasn't really something I normally was scared of, I guess. And so I found some videos of Octavius Vanderplan. That's who was like the raw guy that brought it to the Western world, and he founded the primal diet, is what they call it. So I saw a couple videos of him. He's a really interesting guy. He has some really interesting theories, and he's done a bunch of really cool experiments on raw meat and things like that. He's basically like a scientist and nutritionist. So he had some really convincing videos about bacteria and parasites and how they're actually not as harmful as they say they are, and they're actually supposed to work symbiotically with our bodies. So essentially, in a healthy body, you're not going to have any issues with bacteria, parasites, or anything like that. And so once I saw that video, that gave me the courage to kind of just really just kind of see through the veil, I guess, and jump through it and just start eating it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, learning that the human stomach pH is at a 1.5, and that's the lowest of low, pretty much. That with that pH, we should be able to mitigate any harmful pathogens for sure.
Yeah, and then that would be my guess too. That was kind of like my instinct. Is I was like, well, like how is a worm going to survive your stomach acid, right? If your stomach
Hmm.
acid can dissolve bones and meat and things like that. And that's just my kind of instinct, not really knowing anything about science or anything like that. But then people will respond back and they'll say, well, there's worms that can survive stomach acid. There's eggs and things like that can survive that. But I just I don't really see any evidence that that's an issue with raw meat. I've been talking to people all over the world for the past 4 years about it, like hundreds and thousands of people, and probably at least hundreds of people that actually eat the raw meat. And I've never had anybody come to me and say, I was eating raw meat and I got a bunch of parasites. I've never actually
Hmm.
heard that. You would figure if it was a problem like they said it would, that I would have heard it at least one time. So I just think that if there's any risk there, it's probably so extremely low, it's not even worth addressing. And it may be in just people that have severely bodies in the first place, that using things like that, that the parasites are there to help break down for you. So it's more of like a symbiotic thing that they're working with us. And there's also studies, or there's actually protocols that doctors use where it's called like helminthic therapy, where they actually inoculate people's guts with parasites, and it actually heals autoimmune conditions. So there's actually more evidence, scientific evidence, that parasites actually, a lack of parasites can actually lead to issues rather than like parasites themselves.
Yeah, yeah, I can believe that. I feel like the world is like way too clean now anyways, and it's causing people more harm than good.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. We're in a sterilized world right now. It's pretty
Yes.
insane. We're born into it. It starts in the hospital, you know. It
Right,
starts
right.
with our birth. It starts with our birth. We're born into these sterilized hospital rooms, and it's just everything is yeah. And like with a lot of doctors are pushing C-sections now too, and
Oh,
when a
I
lot of times they aren't
know.
even necessary, but they push them like crazy, and that alone can the baby needs that the biome when it comes through the
Mhm.
the vaginal canal. It absorbs its mother's microbiome in that way, so that can affect the baby too.
Yeah, definitely. I have two kids, and when I was giving birth to my last kid, he's 4 now, but they wanted to wheel me out and do a C-section, and I was like, "Oh my God, please just let me push, just let me push." And I pushed my baby out,
Sure.
even though they were like, "No, you need to have a C-section." But it's proof that I was fully capable of getting him out the natural way.
Yep. And I think that happens a lot. That happens so
Hmm.
much more nowadays. And who knows why they're doing that? Who knows if they're just pushing it for money or whatever? But and the also side effect of that is, I think if you have a C-section, then if you have any future children, they have to do a C-section on all the rest of them too.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, my mom had 4 C-sections.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty common. So yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay, this is not about birth. But okay, so when you started eating raw meat, was the flavor immediately appealing to you?
No, it wasn't. No, that's pretty common question too, and it's pretty normal to be somewhat averse to it at first. Especially
Hmm.
when we're eating for decades, we're eating all these salty, seasoned, sugary foods all day. I think that messes up your sort of taste buds, and it also messes up the biome. of your mouth, your oral biome and things like that. So you're going to have bacteria in your mouth that are like craving sugars and salty foods. So it takes a while to kind of adjust to the new raw flavors and the new textures. But I just kind of forced myself to it because I recognized almost like the medicinal benefits of it. As soon as I ate it, I just felt awesome. And I was like, you know what? I just got to kind of force myself through this. And I knew that I would adapt over to it because it wasn't so bad to where I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. It was just like, you know, a little bit of like gagging here and there. Like your body kind of wants to reject it a little bit because it doesn't know what it is. And especially with stronger foods like liver and raw eggs will do that too. And when you get into the organs like brain and stuff like that, when you first eat that, that can be really different. But yeah, I eventually got used to it, and now I love it. I absolutely love the flavors of it, and I lick my finger when I'm like, I catch myself doing that because I like the flavors so much now. So something happens where you can kind of train your body to go back to what I believe is our natural diet.
Yeah. Okay. So how long do you feel like it took you before you were like, oh yeah, this is the good stuff. I'm loving eating raw meat.
Yeah, that's interesting. It kind of it differs varying on what kind of food it was. So like I started out with raw steaks. So I was chasing it with water at first, and which isn't really a great idea because that dilutes your stomach acid and things like that, which I found out kind of later on. And I started chasing it with raw milk after that. But I also found later on that I digest my food a little bit better, and I just feel better when I don't drink any liquids with my food at all. So, but while I was doing that, it kind of helped me get it down. And with the beef, like the raw beef, I don't know, it probably took me
Uh-oh, I lost
maybe
you.
used to it. Probably I was actually like really enjoying it. Did you? You got me?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I got you. So with the beef, it took you
Okay.
how long?
Yeah, it took me maybe like a couple weeks to a month to kind of get used to
Okay.
it. So I really enjoyed it. But it's
Okay.
really slow and gradual. It's hard to say, oh, there was like a certain day where I just all of a sudden loved it. It was really gradual. I just kind of gradually over the course of the last, or over probably the first year, started enjoying it. But liver took me a while. I gagged on liver for probably months.
Mm.
But I just kind of developed little techniques where I would cut the liver into little pieces and just kind of swallow them whole, stuff like that.
Yeah. Do you feel like you had trouble eating enough food at first because it wasn't going down so easy?
Um, Not really, because like I said at the beginning, it wasn't like so bad where I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to draw liver or
Mm.
anything. I just started out with just straight up raw beef, and it's really like raw beef is really not a whole lot different than eating a steak. I mean, the flavor is like
Yeah.
really similar. You'd be surprised. So, a lot of people, I think it's just in our heads, and it's more of just like it's a mind over matter thing, 100%. Because like once you get into it, you're like, wow, there's really nothing to it. Like the flavors of raw meat are actually outside the organs. They're really bland. I mean, it's the absolute like definition of what bland is. Bland is like no seasoning, just very plain. And most raw meat tastes like that. So if you can just get used to eating the bland flavors, which most people can, it's really easy. But a lot of people have like texture issues. They say it's like the texture, the sliminess, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. That may be something a little harder to get over, but I never had that texture issue personally.
What about temperature? What temperature do you usually eat at or eat the meat? What temperature is your meat?
Usually just room temp. So
Okay.
I'll get up in the morning and I'll make my meals, or I don't even have to make them. I just set my meals on the counter for the day at the beginning of the day. So I got my
Yeah.
lunch and dinner set out there. By the time I eat it, it's probably sitting at 70 degrees or 75 degrees.
Okay. All right. What about chewing? I would think raw meat is a lot tougher. Was that something you had to navigate also?
Um, it again depends on like the cut. So some cuts are really hard, like brisket is really tough, and so is beef heart. Those are probably the two toughest of. And you just got to cut those. You don't really have to chew your food. So that's an interesting thing I found. You can almost just like eat like a dog. So you can just eat these big chunks of it and just swallow it down. And it goes down your throat really easily because it's naturally sort of like slimy and soft. And so it doesn't really, I've never choked on it. I've gotten close where I've eaten like too big of a chunk and I almost started, but it always went down. So I think it's like almost impossible to choke on raw meat. Like when you see people choking on food, it's like 100% time it's always cooked food because it's really dry and it's hard to get down and really, just really dry. But yeah, I mean, if you can just cut it into small pieces, and what I do is I just chew it 2 or 3 times and swallow it down. Like you don't really need to chew it a whole lot. And I think there's some studies or Ogenus did mention that your oral biome can compete with your stomach biome. So it's probably better not to chew your food a whole lot anyways, because then you're going to get competing bacteria going on. So, and it makes sense when you see like natural, carnivores like dogs or any kind of meat eaters, they grab big chunks of it and they really just gulp it down. And I think that's the way we're supposed to eat.
Yeah,
but you can't do that with cooked food.
Right. I saw a video of your dogs eating their meal, and it was all raw. Did you bring them up on raw food? Have they always eaten raw food?
They started eating raw when I started eating raw.
Okay.
So I had them for about a year at that point. So they were 1 year old, still pups, but they got pretty decent food growing up from 0 to 1. Like I fed them like the best kibble you can get if there is such a thing. And then after kibble, before they went raw, I switched them over to this really good like wet canned food where it was like a lot of meat, like turkey and chicken and stuff like that. So they were eating like wet canned food, which was cooked, but it was still meat for probably 6 months before they went raw. And then they just went raw the same time I did.
Did they have trouble with like getting used to it, like textures, or like not liking it at all?
No, they loved it. They
Okay.
absolutely loved it right off the bat. They never had any issues digestively. They never had issues eating it. They instinctively knew exactly how to crunch the bones up and swallow them.
Yeah.
Like it was really cool to watch.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a German Shepherd, and she just turned a year. A few months ago, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna start giving her raw chicken. Like they have these leg quarters at the grocery store, and they're super cheap. So I tried to get her to eat them, and I kept offering to her, but she'd kind of play with it, kind of shake it around. And I was kind of like, I wonder if she feels like the flesh feels like my flesh and she's afraid to bite it. But she just let it rot in the backyard. And I was like, oh man, Storm, what are you doing? But I found that if I kind of halfway seared it, she would eat it. But I don't know. I kind of feel like she's just a picky dog, because she'll eat raw ground beef fine, but like chicken on the
really?
bone, she was just like, nope, I won't do it.
How old is your dog?
She just turned 1 like last month.
Oh, so she's still a pup. Yeah. So there wouldn't be any like conditioning from her eating like kibble for too long or anything that would cause that.
That from
interesting.
From the time we got her, she's had very little kibble. Like I would just like boil a chicken and give her all the chicken and she would eat that. And then like now we have 2 dogs, so we have introduced some kibble, but she won't touch the kibble. She's like, nope, I'm not eating that. So she's definitely conditioned to want meat. So she'll eat the raw beef, but the raw chicken, she's just not going for yet.
Was it those was it like the leg and thigh quarters that you get in those bags, those red bags?
Yeah.
That's what I feed them too. It's possible. That's not like the best quality chicken either. Obviously, it's like probably the cheapest stuff you can get. that's what I feed my dogs. And it's possible that your dog recognizes that it's not
Yeah.
quality food.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd be willing to bet that could be it.
So there's that instinct again or something, and they can smell it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe
how
try to get some like pastured chicken and try that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea. I was gonna ask the last thing about your dogs and then back to you. How are their teeth?
Teeth are really good. Outside my female dog, she actually has a she has a broken front. I don't know if you call that an incisor.
Mm-hmm.
One of those long teeth on her front. She actually broke it on something. I'm not sure what she broke it on. If it was like
Oh,
one of
wow.
the goat heads that I gave her or something, but it's broke about a third of it broke off the top, but it seems to be okay. It's not infected or anything. But yeah, outside of that, their teeth are really good, and I think she learned her lesson on that. I think, and she doesn't chomp down with her front teeth
Mm-hmm.
anymore. She grinds everything down with her molars now. But I was really surprised about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was asking because I was talking to a family member, or they were talking to me, and they were like, "Yeah, I gotta pay like $1,200 to get my dog's teeth brushed." And I was like, "What? Why don't you just not feed them corn?"
Right. I know. I was just thinking that the other day. I was just thinking how silly it is to brush your dog's teeth like yesterday. You know, I was like, come on, do you think wolves brush their teeth in nature? That's so silly. Like, you
Oh,
know,
you're
I don't
right.
even use toothpaste on my teeth. I haven't used toothpaste in 4 years.
Yeah, and it's not necessary when you're not like covering them in sugar every day.
Yep. Yep. And also eating cooked food is a part of it too. Because every time I eat
Okay.
like a cooked steak, I'll get meat stuck in my teeth. But when I eat raw, nothing gets stuck in my teeth ever.
Oh, okay. So if someone was thinking about going raw and they were carnivore, would you recommend that they just stop eating all cooked food and go to totally raw, or would you recommend they keep having some cooked and some raw and kind of wean their way over?
Well, I think any raw is better than no raw, but I'm the type of guy that I just like to go all in. I'm kind of
Mm-hmm.
all or nothing, so that's why I just 100% raw, and I never went back outside of the occasional like obviously like family dinner or whatever special outing. I'll have like a rare steak or whatever, but other than that, yeah, I just went all in. And I think it's better that way because I mean, you're just gonna expedite your healing and expedite the detox by doing that and not delay it. But I think you can run into issues when you're mixing like cooked food and raw food in your stomach. I mean, I've heard that. I've never had any issues with it personally. I've had like a cooked steak for lunch and then a raw steak for dinner, and I've never had any stomach issues. So I don't know if there's any proof to that or not. But I think some people may run into issues when you're mixing cooked and raw because you're kind of mixing up different biomes and things like that. So, but it just kind of depends on what kind of person you are, what kind of personality you have. You know, if you feel apprehensive about it and you just want to kind of slowly walk your way into it and that makes you feel better, then that's fine. Some people, they can if they're not used to the flavors and textures, that you can just cut up really really small pieces of raw meat, like as small as you want, and just every day eat a little piece of that, and it could basically inoculate your system with good bacteria and eventually get you to start craving it. So it
Mm.
just depends on your personality and you know how barbaric you want to get about it. But I just jumped right in personally.
And then would you recommend that do you think it's okay for somebody to get raw meat from a grocery store and start that way? Or would you recommend that they go the extra mile and try to find meat straight from a farmer or a butcher?
Yeah, like I said, like I've eaten tons of supermarket beef and things like that, so I've never had any issues. I've never eaten supermarket chicken, but I would assume you wouldn't have any issues with that either, because like I said, they all go through the same USDA inspected facilities. But I would recommend, if you have the money, to obviously invest in like pasture raised food, pasture raised chicken, because ultimately, like the disease that is caused in our body, I think is caused from toxicity. in the animal. So it's from what they're fed, medications they're given, things like that. Disease, from my understanding, isn't caused by actual bacteria. So the bacteria is there to remove the toxicity. So that's when people have these big bacterial reactions. A lot of times it's from toxicity in the body, and the bacteria is there trying to clean it out. But they go to the doctor says, oh, we found bacteria, it must be the cause of it. But they don't look at actual like chemical poisonings and things like that can trigger it. So long story short, you're fine with supermarket food. I know people that do it all the time, but if you're looking to get the best bang for your buck and the best for your health, then invest the money into 100% grass-fed. Even if it's from the store, just get 100% grass-fed and then pasture-raised chicken.
All right, cool. So what all do you include in your diet?
I eat meat, organs. I'll eat glands. I've eaten adrenal glands, thyroid glands, thymus glands, pancreas, testicle, brain, eyes, blood, and then I also do raw milk. I do raw cheese, raw unsalted cheese. I do some salted cheese too, and then raw unsalted butter, and a little bit of fruit. I got a peach for lunch today. I do one fruit per day when it's in season, for a little bit of carbs, but it's really just because I like to eat fruit. There's really no nutritional secret there. I just like the flavor of it. But and then what else do I do? Let's see. I make raw ice cream. So I'll make raw ice cream from raw cream and raw milk and raw honey. I do a lot of raw honey. Sometimes I'll make raw lemonade with its fresh squeezed lemons and raw honey mixed with spring water. And other than that, I do spring water for a little bit of hydration, but most of my hydration comes from the raw meat, the raw milk, and the raw eggs. And pretty much it. Everything off the animal, eggs and dairy, meat, eggs and dairy, and just a little bit of fruit.
All right, cool. Yeah, I saw the video of the ice cream and I thought that looked pretty cool. I think my kids would really enjoy that.
Oh man. Oh yeah. Yeah, you got to be careful with that. It'll easily become, like your favorite food of all time.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Okay, so blood. Where are you able to find blood? And I would assume you're getting it fresh.
Yeah. So last time I got it recently, I went down to Kentucky, and if you saw those videos I posted on Instagram, we butchered a sheep with my buddy Derek. So we got all the fresh meat, all the blood, harvested all the blood and everything. So that's where I most recently got blood. But other than that, we actually have a live meat market here in Omaha, which is it's what they call a custom exempt slaughter facility. So basically you go there and you purchase the animal. You're not buying meat, you're actually buying an animal, and then you pay them to process it for you, and then they send it home with you in bags. So you can get every part of the animal. Like I took all the meat home, all the blood home, all the legs, the bones. I even took the fur, the hide. Like they give you everything.
Wow. I've got to see if they've got something like that here in Georgia. I feel like they would, because Georgia seems to be a little bit more lax on some of the things. But that sounds awesome.
It's pretty cool. It's not I don't think it's not really up to my standards as far as quality, because I don't think it's like 100% grass fed or organic, and they're probably given dewormers and they're probably vaccinated and things like that. But I prefer my grass fed beef, which is not vaccinated, no medications, no nothing. It's just all goes in, it's all grass. I prefer that, but if I want to get some of the good stuff, I'll go down there to the meat market and get like really fresh meat, really fresh organs and stuff.
Yeah. Okay, this is a little off topic, but I think I read the other day that you sleep in a Faraday cage. Is that true?
Yeah, I sure do.
And you made it yourself?
Yep.
Wow. Is there a video on your YouTube of you making it?
Yep. Not actually making it, but I do have a video on my YouTube of the actual cage, and I kind of go through how I made it. But it's a really super simple design. I mean, it's just basically a box made out of 2x4s and 4x4s. So
Okay.
you just make a big rectangular box, and then you just drape a window screen over it and
Okay.
staple it to the sides, and then make sure you get it on the bottom too. Just all 6 sides of it have to be covered. And yeah, it gives some pretty incredible sleep. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I can imagine. That sounds really cool. That sounds like a project I should have my kids help me do.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it gets a little tricky if you're not a floor. I found that I sleep better on the floor, so it's a lot easier when you sleep on the floor because you can just put down. I have like a camping mat. I just sleep on
Yeah.
a little foam mat. But you can do it with a bed too. You can
Okay.
figure out ways how to create like a canopy or something. And if you have a little bit of money to blow on it, then you can actually get the actual silver lined fabric, which actually is a little more aesthetically pleasing. And you can create like a
Mhm.
canopy and then drape that silver lined fabric over it, which has the same effect. So it just depends on how rudimentary you want to get with it. My design is like super basic and simple. It's the first thing I ever made. So it's just a wood box with screen on it. It's nothing fancy, but
Okay.
it's functional. It does the trick.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super cool. I slept on the floor, I think for a period of like 3 or 4 months, and I really liked it, towards the end. And but the reason I stopped is because I felt like it was driving a wedge between me and my husband because I'm just sleeping on the floor here beside the bed and he's in the bed and we're like not
Mhm.
sleeping together. So I was like, okay, I'll get back in the bed for now until I can convince him to sleep on the floor with me.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah, there's all these social issues that can prevent us from doing all the weird things we want to do for sure.
Right. So, what do your family and friends think about the way you eat and your lifestyle?
I mean, they don't think it's really that weird anymore because I've been doing it for so long and they can see that I'm obviously healthy. So
Yeah.
I think it's like it's slowly revealing itself that like, okay, maybe he's right about this. Obviously at first they're like, like especially the old timers like my grandpa, he's just like, oh, you're gonna get sick if you don't eat vegetables. And I'm just like, I don't think so, man. Like, you gotta it's amazing the things you can learn when you start to tune your body in and start to kind of like look for answers on your own, and it's like I gotta tell you, like I haven't eaten vegetables in like, it's like 2 years at that point, and I was like, I've never felt better. So you would
Hmm.
think if it was that big of a deal, I would feel it by now. So it just comes down to just yeah, old timers like my grandpa. But then again, my grandma she always likes her steaks rare, and she's just like, well, if it works for you, it works for you. She's got kind of that mentality. My mom, she's really super open-minded, and she actually ate a piece of raw meat with me the other day. I got her to snack on a little bit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and my cousin Cole, he actually stopped by. He lives a few hours away into Iowa, but he was in town one day. He stopped by, and I got to eat a raw steak and some raw milk with him for dinner, and that was like a really cool experience. Eating eating raw meat with other people is like a very unique experience. It's very cool. But eating it with family is even better. But for the most
Mhm.
part, I mean, it's not. I don't think it was like a huge surprise because, like, I guess I've always been a little bit different. I guess maybe like the black sheep of the family, you could say. So it wasn't like a big surprise.
Yeah. All right. So, you've been doing this for over 4 years now, and you're eating all of these different cuts and parts of the animal. Is there anything that you're just like, I just can't get down with that? I keep trying to eat it, but I can't get used to that.
No, no. I mean,
No.
I've eaten everything off the animal from the eyes down to the testicles. I've even eaten the colon off of a sheep 2 weeks ago. So yeah, I mean, it's all once you get into it, it's all very similar. The organs sometimes have very drastically different flavors, but The craziest thing that I ever did was 2 weeks ago with Derek. I actually took a little shot of raw bile. So
Okay.
it was raw stomach bile, and it was like that green, fluorescent green
Yeah.
liquid. And it came straight out of the, I believe, the gallbladder that it came out of the animal that we harvested. And he goes, you're going to want to take a shot. I took a shot of blood to chase it, which is funny. But he said, you're going to want to take a shot of blood after you drink that because it's strong. And I was like, oh, I'm good. I'm fine. I've eaten all this stuff off the animal. But that raw bile was like super intense. It was the most intense thing I've ever eaten in my life. And so I had to take a shot of blood after to chase it down.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say that's the craziest thing. You got to be careful with adrenal glands too. If you eat too much adrenal gland, I actually threw up after I ate some one time because I think of just the adrenaline dump that you get from the gland. So the adrenaline in your stomach can make you throw up. So you got to be careful with adrenal gland too. But yeah, there's things to be careful about. But for the most part, I'll eat anything for sure.
Wow. Yeah, I guess I'm more getting towards that I'll try anything. Um like liver was a hard one for me to get used to. Now I can eat it raw. I eat it raw and frozen if I have it. Um but I got to be honest with you, when I first found out about carnivore, it was through, I don't know if you know Sperige or Spherie.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, he's all about, the raw food, raw diet. And I was so tired of being sick how I was. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going for it. I'm going all in. And I wasn't eating all raw, but I started having like some raw steak, and that was good. And then we got some liver. It was calf's liver from local farmers market. And I feel like looking back, it's because I was so sick that I didn't have what I needed to digest this properly. But I got salmonella from this liver, and I don't know if it wasn't stored properly or what. But after that experience, that kind of like turned me off of raw for a while, and I continued, or yeah, it made me not even want to do carnivore for a while. Like it almost took me a whole year to come back to carnivore.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard a few cases of that happening. I've never heard of people getting parasites, but I have heard over the years of people saying that I ate liver and I got sick for like 4 days. Or
Yeah.
I've heard that before from people. And I don't know. I don't think we still understand how everything works and what's going on there. There's just so many variables. It's so hard to figure out and pinpoint and go, oh, that's because of this or that's because of that. It's
Right.
like, what was the animal fed? How was it raised? What kind of medications were given? How was the meat stored? And then also your own body. What's your microbiome like, and what kind of toxicity levels are in your own body? And was the liver just detoxifying your own body, or like what? We have no idea what's going on there. But the important thing to note, I guess, is that I hear about that happening like so rarely, and it's never like fatal or anything like that, or really like life threatening. So, but it's so rare that I think it's happening at a percentage rate that is probably even smaller than the percentage rate of people that are getting food poisoning from cooked food. So,
Oh yeah.
you know what I mean?
Like vegetables, even like I know there's this big thing with the romaine lettuce and the spinach, and with E. coli getting a bunch of people sick.
Right. So when people tell you, oh, you can never get sick off of raw meat, because I studied autogenous fungal plants, and you said raw meat doesn't make you sick, and I'm like, that's BS, because I ate raw meat for 3.5 years and I got sick off of wild venison.
Okay.
And I got really bad food poisoning 2 times in a row. I actually tried it again to see if it was just a fluke or what it was, and I got sick twice off of it. So it does happen, and it can happen, but I don't think it's a coincidence that it was from an animal that was basically, here in the Midwest, we have a lot of glyphosate fields, and it's basically Monsanto land. So the deer here, the wild deer, they graze these crops, and they eat a lot of pesticide, corn and soy and things like that. So that may have something to do with it. It was like the one time that I strayed off of my 100% grass-fed diet and I went on to a wild animal that was eating these crops. So I'm still trying to figure it out. I'll probably never know what caused it, but it could have been how he actually stored the animal. Because from what I know, he killed the animal and then just put it in his truck for like 2 days and then brought it to our shop and then we butchered it. I helped him butcher it and everything. So, yeah, it does happen. It can happen. It's obviously like really rare. Like I said, I got sick one time off of venison and it was after eating, I don't know, 3,000 pounds of raw meat. So whatever the percentage rate that is, like 0.001%, like, it does happen, but lasted 4 or 5 hours and it was done. So, yeah.
Yeah. So there should be a little bit of caution for some things, I guess. What is your favorite food? If you're going to splurge a little bit, it's like your birthday, what are you having?
Let's see. For raw, I could probably eat 100 raw oysters. If it was my birthday, I would just eat like $100 worth of raw oysters. That's my favorite.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I am yet to try raw oysters, but it's on my list. Next time we're near the coast, I think I'm gonna or at a really nice restaurant, I think I'm gonna get some oysters. I'm finally gonna do it.
You have to. It's the best.
All right. So you just slurp it down, no chewing.
Yeah, basically just maybe a little chew with your tongue, kind of squish it around a little bit. And it's super good. It's got that nice salty ocean water with it. It's so good. Yeah, very good.
Okay. And then you mentioned that you have really good energy, energy like never before, eating the way you do now. You haven't been sick. What other benefits have you gotten from this way of eating?
Yeah, it's mostly like the most beneficial one that I've noticed is my mood's been stabilized and I have like a mental clarity that I've never had before. So that's what's most important to me is like a stabilized mood and mental clarity. Before my mood was all over the place. Like I was a total mess. Way different than I am today. So yeah, that's a big thing. Mental clarity. Yeah, obviously my energy's good. And yeah, I just kind of have like a peace that I never had before, and I don't know if that's because part of that's because I'm getting more nutrients in my body and my brain. And the other part of it maybe is that I'm basically only eating like natural animals, like natural pasture raised, like happy animals, because there's some people believe, and I tend to believe this too, that you take on the energy of the food that you eat. So if you're eating an animal that was raised in terrible conditions and it lived a painful life and suffered its whole life, then you're going to actually take in that suffering. So I think that's part of it too, is I just stopped eating like all of those, factory farmed animals, and I just started eating grass-fed beef, and it kind of grounded me and just brought me this like, peace or whatever you want to call it.
Wow. Do you work out?
I'm sort of off and on about that. I don't have a regular routine, but I stay pretty strong without it. But I go in spurts. Like I was doing push-ups for the last like 4 months, and then I actually lifted weights like twice this. So I just go, but I don't push myself anymore.
Okay.
I don't push myself crazy.
Yeah, because I was going to say, it looks like you have good muscle tone, like someone who is working out all the time. But I think definitely the way you eat is helping you to maintain that, even if you're not super regimented.
Yeah. It's all about balance. Like being strong is really all about, I think, living a balanced life. And I have a job where I work in a shop. So I'm on my feet all day. So I'm never sitting down at a desk. I'm never looking at a computer. And I chose that out specifically for that reason. I've been offered sales jobs and desk jobs, and I refuse it because I want to be on my feet, working with my hands, and I'm lifting like heavy doors and things like that. So I'm getting like a workout, like almost like like a farmer would, like working the fields and just kind of lifting up his equipment and doing stuff during the day. So I think that's how I get like, you know, my tone down. And yeah, I think the meat also put a lot of muscle in my upper body too. So,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of it is like it's mostly genetics, honestly. Like I'm straight up with people, and I'm like, if you eat raw meat, like you're probably not gonna get as big and strong as I am just because you're eating raw meat. Like my dad was like a really strong, big guy, so therefore
Okay.
I had those natural genetics, and so it's really easy for me to just put on muscle.
Yeah, definitely genetics play a big role. And it's good you said that, because I don't want some poor little guy watching this and like,
Yeah,
thinking
yeah.
thinking things are gonna happen for him that are probably not. Okay, so I have one last question for you. What advice would you give to someone just starting out on a raw meat diet, or what's something you wish you knew when you first started this journey?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So I would say number one thing is never get stuck on following just one guru, one nutrition guru. A lot of people love to do that. They find someone that they really diversify your sources of knowledge that you're, you know, getting about food, and follow multiple people. Um, and The other thing I would say is start getting in tune with your body and following your cravings rather than listening to what someone else is telling you what you should eat. So at first, your cravings may be imbalanced because you've eaten junk food your whole life and you may not know exactly what you need. So you might need a little help from the nutrition guru or whatever to kind of tell you how to start out. But I would say as quickly as possible, get away from that and start to just learn. Just figure out kind of what you want to eat and what makes you hungry and what makes you salivate, and just eat that. And the other thing is like don't don't be afraid to binge on foods when it comes to healthy foods, because your body may really need something from that food, like some nutrient from it, and you may want to eat a whole lot of it at a time. There's nothing wrong with that. Like I know people that, including myself, when we first got raw milk ever, we drank like a gallon the first day, you know, like things like that. So people do that. There's nothing wrong with that. And when it comes to like, you know, if you want to get into fruits and berries and things like that, there's nothing wrong with eating like a whole bunch of berries at one time and then just not eating any for like weeks, because that's kind of how we would have done it if we were foraging. So there's just certain, like, I would say, I was really against this for a long time, but people would say you shouldn't be dogmatic. Don't be dogmatic. And I always hated when people said that. And now I know why I hated when people said that. It's because they're right. And I hadn't seen it yet, but they're totally right. You know, you should not be dogmatic about things. And life is all about balance. And everybody just wants to take one extreme or the other. And I think it's all about balance. And it's all about just, you know, finding the middle ground and seeing what works for you, but learning to figure out what's good for you based on your own senses. You know, get your taste senses, your smell senses, your body intuitions lined up, and you should be able to figure out what you want to eat from there.
Absolutely. That's a great piece of advice. Weston, this has been such a wonderful interview. It's really been a delight. Everybody, I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but you can find Weston on Instagram at The Real Natural Human Diet and on YouTube at The Natural Human Diet.
Yep. Yep. Yes, you can. And I post most frequently to Instagram, but I'm starting to do more YouTube again too. I kind of bounce back and forth. The longer videos I can't put on Instagram, I'll put on YouTube, and kind of vice versa. So you can find me on both of those.
Awesome. Awesome. Oh, Weston, you have a great, or Wes, am I calling you Weston and you go by Wes? Have I been doing that this whole time?
Yeah, you can call me both. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Okay. Cause I just saw your name pop up in the corner and I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
That's
No, yeah, Weston's my actual name. That works.
okay. Okay. All right. Well, it has been so nice talking to you, and
You too.
have a great rest of your day.
Okay.
Let's see. And yeah, I'll talk to you later. It would be great to do this again sometime.
Sure, anytime. Just reach out to me.
That's it for today. Until next time, stay meaty, stay strong, and stay inspired. Do you have a carnivore story to tell? Connect with me on Instagram at meat, MEAT, Mrs. MRS Grubs, GRUBS. I would love to interview you, and the world needs to hear your story and how meat heals. Thanks so much for watching and all your support. Bye-bye till next time.